became vegan very slowly. I watched this movie, Forks Over Knives, which is on Netflix and you should all watch. Even if you never become a vegan, just watch Forks Over Knives. It just tells you a lot about food and the food establishment and all the stuff we put in our bodies and what it finally does to us. And I also watched Food Inc. and I watched Super Size Me, and I just watched a bunch of these, you know, this is the world on processed food types of movies. And so my daughter had discovered Forks Over Knives. And then she discovered the program that's referenced in it, which is actually called the Engine 2 diet, because a fireman who is, pardon? A firefighter, sorry. Oh, right. Okay, a firefighter, Rip Esselstyn, yes, a man. And the son of, well, you're still right, the son of the doctor who is referenced in the article decided to take this program to his firehouse, and he put his fire people on it, and they did really well. And they were really happy with it. It's vegan, but it's also no oil and no salt. And the vegans, normal vegans, get a lot of stuff they're, quote, allowed to eat, unquote, that is still bad for you. Any, you know, processed food, white bread, sugar, all of that, you know, can go under, be lumped under vegan. So this program is way more restrictive because what it cuts out, and what I think is the most important part of it, is processed food. And there is a shit ton of research about what processed food does to people and what the food industry is doing to people and to everybody's kids and so on. So it's really processed food, but I was scared because I thought I'd be eating that my entire life. That is steel-cut oats and kale and fresh strawberries. And yes, I kind of do eat that for breakfast when I'm home, but I don't have to. But that is the good breakfast because it's a whole grain and it's a green, which is one of the big-time greens, and a berry, which is big in antioxidants. So that's the ideal breakfast. But I am not a person who is home very often. So when I went online looking for resources, I was like, what am I going to do? So that I'm not condemned to this. So I found all of these resources, and these are kick-ass resources because they are all people who have decided that they're going to live a great life as cooks or eaters, and they figured out how to do it around all of these, what you guys all think of as limitations, which now don't even seem like limitations to me, because after you're off something like sugar or salt for a couple of weeks, I swear to God, you don't miss it. Your taste buds get conditioned to all this stuff, but then you go off it, and for a while you think, gee, that would probably be really good. And then after a while, it doesn't matter, because there are other sweeteners that are natural, like maple syrup or agave. They're not great, they are also sugars, but they are at least permitted on the program, and they're a little bit better. I don't eat most of them. I don't sweeten anything anymore. I feel like I don't have to. So you can eat all you want of fruits and vegetables. You can use nuts and avocados as fats, and you can sweeten things with whatever you want. It does sound awful, but then Chelsea started it, and in front of my eyes, she lost 40 pounds. And I was like, what? You know, this really is something that I at least have to explore, because it's one of those deals where if she can do it, I can do it. And I couldn't figure out how she did it. So I decided to give up milk, dairy, first, because I had read something that said most of adult Americans or people in Western civilization are lactose intolerant anyway. And I realized that if I could just give up something, I might be in much better shape. So I gave up dairy, and I promptly lost weight myself. And I realized that probably all these years I have been lactose intolerant myself, which basically, don't be squeamish, causes food to stay in your intestines, and and basically rot. And so you gain weight that you wouldn't gain from other types of calories. So not to mention that all our milk is full of hormones and crap. So I gave up dairy and wheat, and I had a great result. And that's when I decided I was going to go all the way and try to do this. And I knew I would take a lot of shit from friends, and I knew I would have a lot of trouble traveling, but I thought I would do it anyway. Especially since the first thing that you have to do, and I had a roommate, the first thing they have to do is clean out your pantry and clean out your kitchen of all the things that could sabotage you and aren't on the program and are bad for you. And that means you have to learn how to read labels. And that's, when you read labels, it's really eye-opening, because most things have some kind of processed ingredient. Everything on the planet that's preserved or processed in any way, shape, or form has some salt in it. And most things have oil in it. A lot of things have sugar in it, and they're in there. So there's a video on how to clean out your kitchen and your pantry. And once you get that done, then even if you're the type of person who likes to cheat on things, you have to make good choices because there's nothing else in there. And truthfully, you can always buy it back, but you should at least throw it out once and try to figure out whether you can make it. And then, one cool side product of all this is I learned how to cook. I had never known how to cook before, never wanted to learn how to cook before, but when I looked at a refrigerator full of vegetables and potatoes and pasta, you can't really eat it raw. And so I figured out that I had to learn to cook. So that actually turned out to be a really fun thing to do, because the cooking world is an arcane subgroup of the real world. And they have all kinds of recipes. There's all kinds of people who trade recipes. And that's when I discovered that Pinterest actually had a use. Before that, I was completely uninterested in Pinterest. But it's really good if you want to look for recipes. And then, when I eat at home, it's really easy. That's my quinoa salad with steamed asparagus and hummus. And I make it myself. And this is my refrigerator. The cool thing about your refrigerator when you have these kinds of foods in it, pretty much they don't go bad. Things without oil or dairy, they stay fresh a very long time. So even if you're living by yourself and you have to make something and eat it 3 times or 4 times, it is not going to poison you. And most of these things also freeze. But then, I travel a lot and I eat in restaurants. And I wasn't about to give that up. So these are what they look like they are. Brownies. My daughter made them for me in London when I went there because she found a recipe on the internet. And these brownies are awesome. They are absolutely incredibly good. And the secret ingredient of them, now this is where I'm going to lose you. The secret ingredient in them is black beans. These are totally compliant brownies that if someone gave them to you and you didn't know, you would think had everything in them that they're not supposed to have. And they're sweetened with dates. So that was my first clue that things could be really good. And then I went with geeks on a plane, and this was my lunch at a bar in Dubai. Yes, I spend a lot of time in bars, and I eat in a lot of bars. And I went to the Middle East, and the first thing that I did before my Middle Eastern trip was find out whether I could even eat the way I wanted to eat on my Middle Eastern trip. And the answer is, it's a lot easier. It is a lot easier, because every other culture but us, if they eat meat, or they eat fish, or they eat chicken, it's a condiment. It's not like the main part of the meal. So they don't sit down and eat a slab of something. And you can easily ask for things without it. And that is hummus and a Greek salad and tabbouleh. I mean, that was an awesome meal, and it was just served up for me in a bar in Dubai. Now, admittedly, it had salt. But when I travel, I have to make some exception for what a restaurant can or will or will not do. So I ask them what they're willing to do, and I work with them. This is a pub down the street from my daughter that now has a quinoa salad with mangoes in it. And most restaurants in Phoenix, I know, have now quinoa something or other, or kale something or other. It's amazing how that's just popped up on everybody's menu. So it's really becoming a lot simpler to eat out. And of course, I love pho, spelled pho. And that's Vietnamese, and they'll make it vegan for you. It's really easy. The other thing that can happen is Chinese restaurants can make you the noodle soup that they usually make. They'll just steam the vegetables for the noodle soup, and then they'll use the soup as the broth. And the Chinese restaurants that know me are already doing that. So it's pretty simple. But then I hit a real roadblock, which was my daughter took me to this very fancy dinner in this 5-star restaurant in London called Chateau de Joules Robertson. Oh no, sorry, Atelier de Joules Robertson. If you look this up, it's like a Michelin rated blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do there? Well, in restaurants like that, they have chefs. And chefs really like to cook. And when you tell the chef that you're vegan, no oil, no salt, the chef takes all the absolutely fabulous stuff that he has in the kitchen anyway, and he puts it together, something really incredible for you. So I had that dinner, followed by this dessert, which is 3 different kinds of sorbet, and they are fascinating because they are coconut and pineapple and basil. So that was pretty awesome also. So far, I wasn't taking, any real, I didn't have any real problems. And the upside of it all is that 2 years later, I weigh 17 pounds less. I am not on my blood pressure drugs, and you may laugh back there, I bought a bathing suit. I feel like
Francine, I am laughing because I think you're amazing. I'm so proud of you. An inspiration.
Well,
with the glass on.
Okay, so here's the deal. Before I go to glass, which I'm sure you all want to hear about, I just want to say to you that there is such an overwhelming amount of research that what they now call the SAD, the Standard American Diet, which the initials stand for SAD, makes people sick. I have friends that are my age, and I wasn't going to even bring this up because it does say that I'm older than all of you. But here's the deal. I've got a friend who is in the hospital and has been there for 2 weeks because his colon stopped digesting food. This man may die. And it is a direct result of the way he treated himself when he was younger. and what he did to his body when he was younger. And I have other friends who are my age, who are in assisted living facilities, who can't walk, who all of that, because they have all of these lifestyle diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, they have heart attacks. Listen, there are geeks in Silicon Valley who drop dead at 45 and 46 years old because they sit all day long and they eat wrong. And one just happened last week. There's always somebody who is, who doesn't, avoid the bullet. And because most of us do sedentary stuff, who, has not made the right accommodations to lifestyle. And truthfully, and this is how I'm going to segue into class, I don't want to, be melodramatic and harangue you, but I love technology. I absolutely love it. And I love my children and grandchildren. And they keep on multiplying, the grandchildren anyway, keep on multiplying. So I want to be here. The thing that makes me the maddest is that I really may not be here to see how these computers get implanted in us, and when the interface goes away, how we become cyborgs or reach the singularity or whatever it is, that Kurzweil thinks we're going to do. But I love it all. And I don't want to, be sick, and I don't want to die young. And, yes, sir.
If you invest in cryogenics, yes, that's why.
I actually, not only have I invested, no, I haven't invested in it, but a guy that you all probably have heard of, Ted Craver, who was a citizen entrepreneur for many years in Arizona, had the first cryogenic facility. It was out in Scottsdale, and it's still there, and there are a couple of people frozen and buried.
Like Ted Williams, except it's a whole shit show and it's fraudulent and everything else.
Totally, but Ted was out of that by now.
Well, yeah, because they were kicking his head around like a soccer ball.
Al Gore.
What?
Al Gore.
Al Gore, that's right, it was Al Gore. Okay, so that's, cryogenics is neither here nor there, and I doubt that I'll do it, I doubt that I'll choose to be.
Just live forever.
Well, that's right, because I'm going to live forever. But what I said when I went on this program is, I'm doing it to optimize myself for immortality. And I know that's not possible, but I just want to be here now as well as I possibly can. And I can honestly say, and you all know this, that I have the energy of a much younger person. And that food is fuel. It's not an arcane concept. Food is fuel. Anyway, before I go on to glass, anyone have any questions? Or actually, I'll take your questions about glass too.
If you travel a lot, do you use Happy Cow?
Happy Cow, yes, I forgot about Happy Cow. In fact, Happy Cow is where I went when I thought I was going to the Middle East. And Happy Cow tells you where you can be vegan in the Middle East, but then I realized it wasn't that necessary because there's lots of, here's what I really found. Almost anywhere else in the world, it is easier than in the US because almost nobody gets the amount of processed food we do. And almost nobody, my beef is not with meat, although this program's beef is with meat. My beef is with toxic food. And if it's beef, yes, and if it's fish, yes. The reason I gave up fish wasn't because of this. I gave up fish before this because I realized that a lot of our fish was coming from China and not inspected, and the people were defecating in the waterways where they were later catching the fish. And I was like, that doesn't sound good. So, that was the end of fish. So much of our food is mishandled and manhandled, And we're not protected by the FDA or the FTC or the, whatever.
FTC doesn't have anything to do with food.
Well, it does because
They do radio.
No, that's the FCC.
Oh, you're old.
The FTC is stuff that's imported, but a lot of our food's imported.
If you want the fish, the VFAO has a list of fish that where it comes from, its farmed, its caught. It's
Yeah.
You can look up VFAO.com.
Yeah, but I just gave it, I mean, I just said, forget it, you know, and I'm so far down the road now, and I don't miss anything whatsoever. So, you know, I think I'm really okay. And about Google Glass is gonna be great. It's not great now because it looks funny on your face. And it's not great now because there's not enough things you can do with it. But I'll tell you a funny story. Yesterday, a client called me just as I was leaving the house to go pick up my dog. And I picked up the phone and I said, gee, Robert, I'm just leaving the house. And I realized he had me on a Google Hangout. He had me on a video call. But I wasn't trained to think about anything besides what I was seeing. I was looking in Glass is paired with my phone, so it answers the phone now if I wanted to. If I just tap the phone, it answers it. And so I answered it, and I initiated this video call. And then I went in my closet and changed my shoes. I went in my bathroom and put on lipstick. You know, I did like all the things that I usually do. And in the meantime, I'm going blah, 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 to Robert. And it finally occurred to me, wait, I'm seeing Robert. Maybe Robert is seeing me. And so I asked him, you know, what are you seeing? And he's saying, I see you heading for your front door. And I was like, ah! But it does do that. It'll read your email aloud to you. It'll read your messages. It shows your Twitter stream. In other words, and what's really cool is that every month they roll out a bunch of updates. And of course, I never read the stuff they send out about the updates they roll out. But every once in a while, I tap Glass and I find out there's something else that I thought was missing that's no longer missing. So I guess I think that this is actually going to be a very good product. They're going to try and do a deal with some, you know, fancy glasses maker like Warby Parker, which is going to make it possible to put prescription lenses in them, and that'll make it even better. And by the time it's released as a consumer product, it will be, you know, faster, better, cheaper, basically, because it's never going to sell at this price. These cost $1,500. So there are a limited number of even application developers who were willing to, quote, invest, unquote. I got them because I'm an evangelist, and also because I run the Arizona Entrepreneurship Conference. I thought that'd be a cool thing to have, and because I am incredibly curious about new technology. But they're going to be better when you get them. And as a form factor, they're definitely, I think, better than a watch, because a watch has the inherent screen real estate limitations, whereas this displays as a pretty big screen. And you can see a lot more stuff on this screen than you realize. So, okay, anybody else? Okay, you can leave now. Thank you. You were very